Hello and welcome everybody to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast. I'm your host, John Puma from the Sake Notes, also the administrator over at the Internet Sake Discord. Do come by and join us for a drink sometime. But on the show, I'm the guy who is not the Sake Samurai.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I am a sake samurai. I am also a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and also chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
So Tim, happy belated Sake Day.
Yes, Sake Day is just passed, and for those of us who are sake fans, it is Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, Hanukkah, everything rolled into one, right?
Yeah, I think it is a really great excuse to go out with your sake-loving friends and sip some sake together. And this year, I feel, was extra special because there were so many events that didn't take place in 2020. And
yes, isn't
that right, Tim?
Yeah. I mean, 2020 was a huge challenge with the pandemic. And I think this year, October 1st, 2021, was like our first steps out of this bad situation. And there was a number of events happening in person. And, you know, it might be fun to kind of talk about what happened, where sake was being celebrated around the country, and review how Sake Day was celebrated this year in 2021. How about that?
Sounds great. Sounds extra great because I went to two different Sake Day celebrations on two different coasts.
Wow, that is dedication right there.
That is dedication right there.
Okay, well, I happen to know you went to the West Coast to celebrate Sake Day a little bit early in San Francisco, and I am dying to hear about what you experienced there. So the first stop we're going to make on our little review of Sake Day events is going to be Sake Day San Francisco.
Yeah, so I had been thinking about going to Sake Day San Francisco for many years, and part of this is that I've actually never been to San Francisco before.
Oh my!
Yeah, so you know, sake makes a great excuse to go places that you've never been. So yeah, sake brings people together, and in this case, knowing it was 1 week before the proper Sake Day, it seemed like a little extra incentive to go over. And on top of all of that, we had a lot of people from the Sake Discord that were going to the event. And it seemed like a really great opportunity to see a lot of these people in person, in some cases for the first time. And these people I've been drinking with for over a year now since the pandemic started. And it was just, you know what, let's go out there, let's have some drinks with all these wonderful people and celebrate the idea that we can get together and celebrate. And I'll say Sake Day San Francisco was wonderful. It was a great event over at the Kabuki Hotel in Japantown in San Francisco. First thing I'm going to say, my takeaway from San Francisco is no one in San Francisco has calves that are below average. There are so many hills that just walking around, your calves are like granite by the end of a week there. It's insane. They always show you the pictures of the hills in San Francisco. They say stories about the hills in San Francisco, and you always think, it's not, that's an exaggeration. It's not that bad. No, it's not an exaggeration. That's exactly how it is, maybe worse.
Yeah, so the city has a built-in Stairmaster.
Oh, Jesus. No, it doesn't have a built-in Stairmaster. That's the problem. It is just it's just a mountain with pavement. It's insane. But you're burning off all those sake calories.
Yes, very important.
And then you go and drink more sake.
So that was on September 25th, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then how was the event itself? Was it crowded? How many vendors were there? What was your whole experience going to Sake Day San Francisco?
So it was spread across 3 different ballrooms of kind of varying size. It was pretty crowded. They did reduce the ticket sales in order to alleviate concerns over over COVID, which I thought was a really classy move.
Yeah.
They made you get into queues ahead of the table so people wouldn't be crowded around the tables.
Yeah.
Because these things sometimes people just kind of you find the sake's over there and you go straight for it. But no, in this case, and most people did really abide the rules. There wasn't a bum rush at any of the tables. It was all very controlled. People were really chill. You go up and talk to people about sake, have your sips, and enjoy yourself. It was a lot of fun. I got to taste a lot of things that we don't really get on the East Coast. I didn't realize there was a variance in the coastal sake selection, and so it was a lot of fun to try some things I hadn't had before. Have some familiar sakes, see people on the industry side that I haven't seen in a very long time. It was a really, really fun experience. I would definitely go back again. It was a great time.
Yeah, I much to my chagrin and embarrassment, I have never been to Sake Day San Francisco. I'm hanging my head in shame right now, but I'm happy to hear the good experience you had. We'll have to prioritize this next time when the pandemic is more winding down and we're traveling more. I would love to get out there.
It definitely is a good time. I think you'd like it. I think you'd get a kick out of it. And maybe one day we'll have a Sake Revolution table.
Oh my God, that's such a great idea. I know I would love it. That is awesome. Well, okay, that was a good kind of first step into World Sake Day territory. Mm-hmm. And then next we can talk about the event that we were at together on the actual day, which is October 1st.
Right.
And we had an event at New York State's first sake brewery, Brooklyn Kura.
Yeah.
So they have a tap room in Industry City, Brooklyn. And we set up an event there. We had about 40 people. It was an indoor-outdoor event. And we had a really good time. Did you enjoy that Sake Day event at Brooklyn Kura?
I did. So as part of the event, we were, bringing people in, pouring sake for them, telling them a lot about their sake, and at the same time, balancing that with a live Zoom event. And a bunch of us were taking turns doing the Zoom bit while drinking also. So
yes,
and it was a great time. And similar to my experience in San Francisco, one of my biggest takeaways was how great it was to see everyone in person.
Yes.
And it was really, really a treat. And I truly underestimated how much that would mean to me. And so when it happened, I was just, it was really great. It was, you get those moments where you just kind of look at them and you're like kind of a little overcome. And it's like, wow, like these are some people that I've been doing things with for this entire really rough time, this whole pandemic. This event was for the American Sake Association, and this group ran a lot of Zoom events last year. We worked very closely with all these people, and to be able to be there in person and kampai with them and for the first time in such a long time was just, it was really great.
It was really great. It was very heartwarming and very special to see a lot of sake friends. But what I liked is that we sold tickets to the general public, and we had, 35 or 40 people come, and some of them we knew from the industry, but some were just consumers interested in sake. So we were still able to do our mission, which was sake education, getting people to taste sake, answer questions. We did some blind tasting games, and that was a lot of fun. And that was interspersed, as you mentioned, with the Zoom. So we had a live Zoom going for 2.5 hours, and we had people joining us from all over on the Zoom. Mm-hmm. And we would periodically check in with other sake events around the country.
Do you want to go through a list? Because some of those seemed like they were really big events. I really enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, it was. We were at Brooklyn Kura, and we were checking in with all these other events over Zoom. We had arranged to Zoom with people at each event to kind of check in, say hello, see what was happening there, and kind of all stay connected. And I have to say, most of the events were bigger and more elaborate than what we had going at Brooklyn Kura.
Yeah, I think the very first one that we did was the one up in New England in Boston.
Yes.
And that was crazy. I couldn't believe how many people were there and how big it was. And it just seemed like such a great time. And seeing all these people getting out there and enjoying sake was so wonderful.
Yeah, that was Sake Day East.
Sake Day East. It was such a great looking show.
Yeah.
Not that I was jealous or anything. I was very happy what we were doing. But, but it did seem like a really good time over there. What else was there, Tim?
Yeah, well, Sake Day East was the first place we Zoomed with, and Monica Samuels, who's been a guest on the show, she was out in Boston, and she gave us a 5 or 10 minute tour, walked us around, and it was a huge indoor-outdoor space.
Yeah.
Like, they really went all out. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of sake, there was grilling. It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
We also visited with our friends over at Motoi in Minnesota. They were on the rooftop of the establishment having a big kampai with everybody over there. We had the group over at Setting Sun in San Diego.
Yep, we visited with San Diego. They were doing a pretty big Sake Day celebration sponsored by Setting Sun, and they had a lot of things happening. They had swag, they had merch, they had
get on
a
that,
big
Tim.
group.
Merch.
Yeah, it looked amazing.
Yeah, and then I believe also there was the other event in Brooklyn.
Yes, there was 2 events in Brooklyn. There was ours at Brooklyn Kura, but there was also one at Mika in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And that was arranged by Sake Man. We've had Sake Men on our podcast before.
We've had a Sake Man on our show.
We've had a Sake Man, and they did an amazing event at this very large event space. I've never been there, but John, you were telling me that you've been to Mika before.
Yeah, it's a Japanese restaurant.
Oh.
But it has like a pool table. They had a shuffleboard table. It's a very, very big space. It's like, I think it was like a warehouse.
Our tour was given by the Sake Boss. If you have not seen the Sake Boss, you got to get yourself to YouTube, or you can check the show notes at sakerevolution.com, or just search for Sake Boss on YouTube, and you will see some super slick, super engaging, and very fun videos on sake. So Sake Boss gave us a tour. Yeah.
Yes. The tour was great, and it looked like it was a hell of a time over at Mika.
Yeah, that was amazing. And we had one more check-in. So I can't believe all the places we visited. Boston, San Diego, Bushwick, Minneapolis.
Yep.
And last but not least, we also visited with North American Sake Brewery in Charlottesville, North Carolina. So we had a tour with friend of the pod, Andrew Centofonte, who's the head brewer at North American Sake Brewery. And they were doing a 3-year anniversary event for their brewery. So they opened 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they gave us a little tour of what was happening at their space as well. So this was a lot of fun. And it was so nice to check in with everyone. And I think it ties in with that theme you were talking about, like seeing people we haven't seen in a long time, taking a moment to connect and be together and celebrate everyone's love for sake together. So it was a really heartwarming day, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And I look forward to the next time we can do something like this. I really, for me, and I think for a lot of people in North America, this was the first series of sake events since the pandemic started. And sake's back. So before we forget, Tim, we should most definitely also make sure we include some sake tasting in today's episode.
What could honor Sake Day more than tasting some sake?
Yes.
So today's going to be a potluck episode where we each bring a wild card sake of our choice. No theme, no agenda. We're just celebrating sake. So let's dig into our sake fridges and see what we have in there.
Aha. I like these episodes because it's a little fun. We get to little kind of play outside the rules a little bit. All right. So what did you find, Tim?
I'm going to have a sake that I've never had before, so we're going to get my honest, true reaction to this. Mm-hmm. It's from Sasaichi Brewery, and they are located in Yamanashi Prefecture. And this brand name is called Dan, Dan. Dan. Yes. And that means daybreak.
Ooh.
So this is a sake that is a Junmai Ginjo, and the alcohol is 16.5%. Our rice milling rate here is 60% remaining. SMV is +3, and our acidity is 1.6. Oh, and this is not far from Mount Fuji, so I've heard that Sasaichi Brewery uses snowmelt from runoff of Mount Fuji.
Ooh.
And I've learned that Mount Fuji is volcanic soil, and it acts like a giant Brita filter on the water that is collected around Mount Fuji. So it's exceedingly soft water in these areas. So I'm really interested to taste the sake and see if I can get a little hint of the softness or hardness of this water through the sake.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that is my sake, Dan Junmai Ginjo. And do you want to introduce us to your sake?
Yes. So I will be tasting Gangi from Yaoshin Shuzo. Now this is the Gangi Hitotsubi. This is a Junmai Namachozo. And Yaoshin Shuzo is in Yamaguchi Prefecture. Yamaguchi, dark horse, really showing up with some really great sake, I want to say. You know? I mean, there's a couple of brands that you really think of when you think of Yamaguchi. But I want to say there's a lot of little guys that are rising out of that prefecture that you need to keep your eye on. And this is definitely one of them. This Gangi Hitotsubi is using Yamada Nishiki rice. It is milled down to 60% of its original size. The sake meter value, that meter of dry to sweet, is plus 3.5. So we're looking a little dry. Acidity is 1.9, a touch high. And this sake is actually aged for 1 year, which is a little bit longer, well, quite a bit longer than your average sake.
Yeah, most sake is generally aged for about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So 1 year is a choice.
This is definitely a decision.
Yeah.
Now, are you familiar with this brand and this brewery?
Yes, actually, I lived in Yamaguchi for 3 months back in 2011.
Yeah.
And I did visit this brewery. So I have been to Gangi. And John, I know you've done some research. So do you want to tell our listeners what Gangi really is? What it means?
Well, Gangi refers to the piers that line the nearby river.
Yes. So they're very unique piers. They're actually steps that come up on the shore, and the steps go down into the water. So it's these very unique steps that are special, I think, to this town where the brewery is located. So the brewery brand name, Gangi, is named after these like step-like piers that go out into the local river. Yeah. So, why don't you go first?
Okay.
And let's get your Gangi Junmai Ginjo into the glass. And I'm really excited to see what you have to say about this.
All right. I think I will. All right. So, first things first, this is mighty clear. Maybe a touch off-white. And no haze to be seen, really. The aroma is faintly fruity. Like a little very, very lightly fruity. It's there. You have to really look for it. But pleasant in that way. It's not overwhelming you. Now let's give it a bit of a taste. So this is interesting. This presents both light. It is really light to me. But also there's a richness to it. And so it's a little subdued in that way, because it is like, there's a faint richness, there's a lightness, a very subdued, relaxing sort of feeling to the sake. A nice little acidity that flows across the whole taste. It's pleasant. It's very sippable. It is dangerously so. It is dangerously sippable. Very, very light and agreeable. But with that little bit of acidity and that richness, there's definitely room for food here. Food's not going to screw this up. It's definitely a little bit of room to play around with, but I wouldn't go too crazy with it. My thought, as often my thoughts go to grilling, the grilling of chicken. So yakitori is a no-brainer for this. I'm thinking something maybe a little bit lightly salty like that. Nothing too crazy, nothing too flavorful, but something that's going to, go nicely with it. Like, again, like yakitori, maybe some grilled fish would go nicely with this also. That's good. It's really nice. Yeah. Also, you don't need to have anything with this. You can just sip it. It's great.
Yeah. So do you think this sake would have been well received at any of the sake events we talked about for Sake Day?
Sadly, it was not present at any of the events I was at, but I think it would have been well received at all of them.
Yes.
I would have happily poured this for people at those events so that they could be introduced to Gangi. Based
on your description, this sounds like a real crowd pleaser style of sake.
That's
easy drinking, right?
The kind of thing I like to. That's the kind of thing I like to drink. Is these crowd pleasing sakes.
Yeah. Now the one thing about your sake that has me interested is that year of aging, and I think if they age at a colder temperature, that preserves the clarity of the sake and kind of mutes the impact of that aging. If you age at room temperature, you're going to get more color and you're going to get more umami and depth of flavor. So I would venture a guess that this was probably aged at a colder temperature. What do you think? I
think it would have to be, because there's no color to it. It does, in a lot of ways, that muting of some of the flavors, it's what I like about Hiya Oroshi also in a lot of cases. And we've talked about that before, how I enjoy that style of sake. They age it for the season, and then they put it out there, and a lot of times it's that sake that's a little bit louder early in the season, and then by the time they release it in the autumn, it's calmed down, it's quieted down. This is a very quiet sake.
Great.
Yeah. So enough about the Gangi, although I could go on.
Never enough.
I can go on, but I do need to hear about this, Dan. I also want to hear your live reaction to this. Yes. I like the idea that you've never tasted this before. It's a rare treat.
No pressure None, at all.
Not one bit.
All right. So I have to talk about the label, which you can see in our show notes at sakerevolution.com. But this is another brand that has chosen a super graphic label. It's a giant silver foil kanji character, Japanese calligraphy. That is the kanji for Dan, D-A-N. And there's a charcoal and red color behind that. And it is just super graphic. And in English, at the very bottom in small white letters, it says Dan on it. So I think the label here is very impactful.
It's a beautiful label. And I think that I've seen other Dan labels before, and they always follow that style of that symbol in the center, and then different color combinations, and it's always very striking, and this is no exception.
All right, well, I'm going to open this up. All right. Well, this is very clear in the glass. Okay, the aroma is very soft and light. And that, I was suspecting that might be the case because they're using this super soft water. So the water that they're using, I would venture a guess, is very, very soft, low minerality. And that generally, as it does in Niigata, translates to less impactful, more restrained, very elegant, but restrained aromas. So this has a very, very gentle fruitiness to it. It seems like that happens a lot, but I'm getting, a peach aroma a little bit. It's not our standard tropical melon.
Peach.
So a little peachy.
Very nice.
Yeah. And very soft, like plum peach aroma. Really lovely, very, very gentle. And let's give it a taste. That is really good. So overall, from start to finish, the flavor is clean. And it has a very gentle kind of pitted fruit flavor to it, like peach or plum, that is very soft and gentle in the background. Just a hint of rice, maybe mochi rice, like a sweeter type of rice. But just, again, these are just kind of, we're wafting. We are wafting, from the other room. These are flavors and aromas that are treated with such a gentle touch to them. It's airy in a way. The flavors are airy. And the finish is clean. It's relatively dry on the finish. There's not much sweetness here. Our SMV is +3, which is, right in the neutral territory. But I'm picking up on very gentle, soft, plummy, peachy flavors. Really enjoyable. A+. I am down with Dan.
You're down with Dan?
I'm down with Dan.
I got to say, so it sounds like these sakes are playing in kind of similar territory. They have that softness, a little bit of dryness, and just sound very, very sippable.
Yeah, just really easy drinking, soft, and I think this very much lives up to what I was expecting from this water profile that you get from this Mount Fuji filtered water. It has a reputation for being extra soft, very low minerality, and the intensity of the sake, which is very subtle, ties in with that kind of water regionality for me.
Very nice.
Yeah. I think for food with the Dan Junmai Ginjo, there's so many ways you can go. I'm getting a hint of this mochi rice flavor, so I think anything rice-based would be really good with this. Are you a fan of Japanese rice crackers?
Yes, absolutely. I do enjoy those a great deal.
There is a wide range of rice crackers on the market in Japan.
Yeah.
There's rice crackers of every texture, intensity, coating, flavoring, soy sauce, you name it. You can get a rice cracker with all kinds of flavorings on it. So that was one of the things when I lived in Japan. One of my favorite things was to go to the konbini or the convenience store, and there would be like 20 kinds of rice crackers. And I didn't know which one was which, but you just kind of grab one and you bring it home and you're like, oh, that's shrimp. Or, oh, that's wasabi rice cracker.
I'd say it's like rice cracker are easily my favorite style of otsumami or like bar snack.
Yes.
Really goes with everything in a lot of ways. I mean, the wasabi ones can maybe stand out a little bit. I love the wasabi ones though. Personally, big fan.
Yeah. John, that is such an important word that you just introduced us to.
Ooh.
Otsumami. Otsumami. If you go to Japan, you have to know this word. You mentioned it's snacks that go with sake, like a sake appetizer. So otsumami are really good little bites of food that are very often served when you order sake in a bar or restaurant. And I think rice crackers of different flavors and profiles is something I'm kind of just craving, that salty bite to go along with this sake. So that's what's popped to my mind. A light, fun snack. And in the Western world, we don't have as much access to rice crackers, but an alternate would be potato chips, something like that.
I'm definitely looking for rice crackers around me, and I can't find any. It's driving me crazy.
So I got a question for you, John,
Okay.
to kind of wrap things up here. Where do you think we will be Sake Day 2022? Do you think we will be out there kanpaiing across the whole country? Do you think we'll have just a few events like we had this year? What do you think the story will be this time next year?
I think that we're going to have as many events next year, if not more. I think it's upward from here. I think a lot of people had to hold it in for 18 months, and it was time to let go and really get out there and celebrate this beverage that we all love so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes next year, October 1st, 2022. Mark your calendars, everybody, because this is the day that we all look forward to. So I'm very excited to see what happens next year and the years beyond. I want to remind our listeners that World Sake Day is exciting and fun, but for us, and hopefully for all of those listening, every day is Sake Day, isn't it?
I mean, it's full disclosure. It's a Wednesday right now, and to me, it's Sake Day.
Yes, it's Sake Day to me too. So we can say that any day we want, John. Happy Sake Day. I'm going to say it today. Happy Sake Day, John.
Happy Sake Day. And saying that really helps me forgive myself for not having a special episode up for Sake Day and getting it up a week later.
We don't have to worry about that. This is a great look back on all the fantastic events that were happening. And I think when we rev up to next year, we're going to see some really special stuff. So mark it in your calendars now and get ready.
I am prepared.
All right. Well, John, I really loved hearing about your Gangi sake from Yamaguchi, and I had so much fun tasting Dan Junmai Ginjo.
Yeah, you got to save some of that for me. That sounds really good.
Thanks for tasting with me, John, and I want to also thank our listeners for tuning in. We really do hope that you're enjoying our show. Now, if you would like to show your support for Sake Revolution Podcast, the best way you can help us out would be to back us on Patreon. We are a listener-supported show, and the money we receive from Patreon helps us pay for editing and hosting and all the sundry costs that are associated with running a podcast.
Yeah.
And we appreciate each and every one of you.
And be sure to subscribe wherever you download your podcast and leave us a review. That is still a really great way to get the word out about the show. Also, go and tell your friends, tell your families, you found this really great sake podcast. They really into Sake Day. What's Sake Day? Oh, and then tell them what Sake Day is. Then you get them into it for next year. That's how it works.
And as always, if you would like to learn more about any of the topics or sakes we talked about in today's episode, and we will definitely be putting up some photos of all the different sake days around the country, be sure to visit our website, sakerevolution.com, and you can check out all the detailed show notes.
And for all of your sake question needs, we have set up an email address for you. You can reach out to us at feedback@sakerevolution.com. So, until next time, please remember to keep drinking sake, not just on Sake Day, but every day. And kanpai!
Happy Sake Day!
Happy Sake Day, Tim.